Many thanks for this kind introduction. I must confess that my background, I have lost it for a long time, and I am a pure bureaucrat. Nevertheless, I thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity you give me to speak on behalf of the Commission about Horizon 2020, the role of e-infrastructures, and the political context, which is the cloud strategy as well as the open access policy. Now, your center here, ESA, and this center in particular, is the best example of what we would expect of cooperation. Cooperation between researchers, but also, and equally important, exploitation of data. I think it's not enough to produce data, it's to make sure that the data is exploited, and furthermore, that there is an economic return in what we finance. And certainly your initiative, Helix Nebula, is a good example on how to pull together requirements in terms of infrastructures from different, most demanding research centers, but equally important is it is an initiative where supply and demand would meet. And we know that in Europe this is one of the major problems. Now, you are aware that Europe is in a difficult situation, and all the efforts in political terms at European level are centered on growth and jobs. And this means, in particular, more innovation. More innovation, better competition in a global world, and for science to better translate the results into technologies and into economic values, that is products and services. So we should not forget that, because this is the driving force on all our activities. And Horizon 2020 is not the exception. Horizon 2020, compared to the 7 previous framework programs for research, and I must confess that I was part of the first one, has evolved a lot. I mean, this is the first time when we bring together research and development and innovation. And the two elements are equally important. And in that context, the part I am responsible for, which is excellence in science, is no exception. The innovation part is part also of excellence in science. And e-infrastructure, which is also part of excellence in science, is no exception. That is, how to use also e-infrastructures to help in being more innovative. Now, when we speak about e-infrastructure, I think I make a very simple definition, which is computing infrastructures, data infrastructure, networking infrastructures. They have a strong role to support research beyond silos and to stimulate the supply of advanced technologies. So the first ambition is, of course, with e-infrastructures to make science and research more effective and more efficient. And there is an element here of cost benefit, which is important. But the second one, it is also on the supply side to develop the necessary technologies in Europe. It's nice that we have a nice strategy to develop cloud computing, but it is not nice that it is offered to worldwide companies and that there is no benefit for Europe, also in terms of exploiting the opportunities. So this is part of our cloud strategy. It is also part of our high-performance computing strategy, and it is part of the broadband strategy. The three elements are there in a broader context, but actually the provision of the necessary technologies in Europe is equally important, not only the user side, as it is very often understood. And indeed, the Vice President Nelly Cruz made it very clear to say Europe should become cloud active. This is the slogan, but not only from the user side, but also from the provider side. Now, the real question now is how can we use the science cloud that you are aiming at as a lead market, and at the end, to stimulate the delivery of European cloud services beyond science. So Helix Nebula is certainly one step in that direction, and obviously we encourage you to go on and to proceed, to work beyond silos, beyond disciplines, looking for commonalities. Also, looking at commonalities between disciplines is something which is not easy, especially when you have in front of you the responsible of the IT departments. It's always very conservative. So the challenge is, of course, with you and also as a funding body with us to support this multidiscipline aspect and actually to work on commonalities, not on silos. Now, you are probably also aware that the Commission is actively promoting a policy on open access to scientific information. It means both publications and data. In practical terms, it means that in Horizon 2020, all publications coming out of Horizon 2020 will have to be openly accessible. But it also means that Horizon 2020 will promote an active policy on open data. And it means that we need the necessary data infrastructure for storage, preservation, and access. It means that this infrastructure we will be funding will also have to support open access. Practical terms, we will launch a pilot action in Horizon 2020 on open data. Of course, there are difficulties. We are at the moment shaping the pilot. The difficulties are obviously openness versus protection of commercial interests, because most of the program is together with industry. So the question is to find the right balance in order that there is a benefit for all parties. I mean, the expected benefits we see on open access to scientific information is obviously on scientists, on researchers, for support of multidisciplinary research, for building on results of each other. But it is also the benefit to the citizen to become more active, and they request also much more transparency, more verification of results, more trust. All that is a benefit for the citizen. But the other aspect, the third one, is the benefit for businesses, and in particular for data, where we need to have active companies in Europe be able to develop services on top of the data. That is construction of data value chains. This is what we expect also is the role of e-infrastructure, to drive all that process. Now, we know that to exit the crisis, Europe is to be more innovative. At the same time, we know that public money is scarce. So it means that we need to do more, certainly for less. But it is also an opportunity to be more daring and more creative. And we are requested by our commissioner to be more creative. So not to protect the statu quo, to be more entrepreneurial, also for a public administration, and also for a bureaucrat as me. So it is a lot we are asked to be. So it means first that Europe cannot afford duplication of efforts. If we have a strategy, we need to follow the strategy and not to spread the money thinly across plenty of options. Each one would be subcritical. This is not acceptable. It means that we need to work on commonalities between disciplines rather than reinventing the wheel each time, as we too often do. Now, the high-level report, the report we had from the high-level group on data, where some of you participated in, was very clear They said the report says funding bodies should have confidence that their investments are paying back extra dividends to society through increased use and reuse of publicly generated data. I mean, this is very clear, and this is what we are aiming at. And in that respect, we believe that your initiative, Helix Nebula, is paving the way for working across disciplines, bringing users with providers, and at the end, to make Europe more innovative. So you are, for us, an integral part of our cloud strategy. And when I say that, I have in mind also what we asked the public administrations to do, also to migrate, to think about cloud services. It is a challenge for science because researchers are by nature very conservative with respect to IT. They like their kingdoms. But for public administration, I think I will not comment. So it means that the lessons you will draw here will be useful for much beyond science, also for public administrations. You are watched. Actually, people are expecting a lot from what you are doing. You can expect our support. And the best way to do that is indeed to contribute to the elaboration of the work program. So I would just like to conclude on that. The window of opportunity to contribute to the strategy is gone. We have a strategy. I mean, it's pretty clear. Cloud strategy is already there. We have the necessary political support. This is done. What we are working on now is the elaboration of the work program for the first 2 years, 14 and 15, in Horizon 2020. But when you start with a work program for the first 2 years, you are pretty sure that the follow-up program after 15 will draw on the results of the previous phase. There is always an element of continuity, just to say that you need to be present in the first work program, that the strategy is clear and that the set of actions are also very clear. Now, to do that, the window is very short. Basically, the work program will be finalized by June this year. It means that basically we have up to 6 months now to really do the hard work. And the hard work we expect from you is a contribution to the roadmap for data infrastructure, and indeed that you tell also us as public body what is needed in terms of support, and not only in terms of money, in terms of doing things better. Thank you.